And welcome into A View from the Press Box. Dima Mixon here with the Pine Belt News with Glyn Dyar, as always, from 247 Sports. In the aftermath of, Glyn, what I think was probably, as advertised, the series of the weekend, at least in the mid-major, Southern Miss losers on Friday, 5-1. They come back on Saturday, even the series in a great baseball game, 8-6. And then today with a walk-off walk to win the series. And what I said was really the only way that series could have ended was a walk-off by somebody.
Right.
And it obviously came down to high drama with Tai Long dropping that pop-out that he's going to make 99 times out of 10. And we can talk about all that. But Southern Miss does win the series. I guess, Glyn, first off, and we're going to get into each individual game, hit some stats, what we liked, what we didn't like, what they need to work on, things like that from a Southern Miss angle. We'll talk a little bit about Santa Barbara, but this is a Southern Miss show. We're going to talk more about them. But I guess overall thoughts, Glyn, I mean, that was an entertaining baseball series. We talked it up, on Wednesday when we did our live show, and it delivered.
Yeah, I'm crazy looking forward to it, as was the fan base. This was a regional atmosphere.
Yeah.
Exciting and high drama. Those last two games for sure.
I know you looked over. We sit next to each other in the press box, and you looked at me. I think on Friday night, and it was 3-1, and Southern Miss seemed like they were about to get back in it. And you looked at me and said, "This is like a regional," and it really felt that way. And I think that's what Oz wanted. He wanted this Santa Barbara to come in here. He knew they were going to be good, and we're about to talk about their arms they had starting, which was ridiculous arms, and he knew they were going to be good. And Southern Miss, of course, a really good team in their own right. That's why they're ranked in the top 25, and they just found a way to win this series.
Yeah, tremendous test for these guys, and just the thing that stands out to me, other than the obvious, their pitching was so good, but there were questions about could they hit the baseball coming in. They kind of dipped last year on the hitting into things, but these guys were extremely disciplined. They didn't chase stuff out of the zone, and I think they punished every mistake our pitchers made.
Yeah,
so it's super efficient.
For sure. We're going to break down pretty much every game, and then after we break down the games, we're going to kind of go in and talk about that lineup for Southern Miss, just kind of what we liked, what we didn't like, and then we're going to nail the pitching for Southern Miss, because I have some concerns about the starting pitching, and rightfully so. Oz, I asked him right at there, and you can watch that interview either on his side or my side, and he said, it's not where we want it to be. Well, we'll get to that in a minute, but I guess game one, Glyn, the story of the game, Jackson, Florida.
Yeah, he's. I've been to games in this place for 30 years, 20 years, however long it's been here, and I guess the kid from Tennessee was one of the best pitchers I ever saw here. Was that Burns?
Yeah, Chase Burns.
Yeah, this guy was better. He's the best guy I've ever seen, simply for the fact that not only did he have 97 to 100, he had elite fastball stuff. He commanded 5 pitches throughout the game, and the deception off that stuff was incredible. I mean, our guys thought we were going to see more fastballs, and we're geared up for that. And he pitched us backwards and finished us off with fastballs. He was amazing.
Yes, I mean, I think he was probably the best arm I've ever seen here at Pete Taylor Park. I saw me and you both saw Chase Burns when Tennessee came here for that super regional, and I thought that guy was better. Of course, Chase Burns, I think his velo was from 101 to 103, but that guy was commanding 5-6 pitches.
Jackson had better secondary. Flora had better secondary stuff.
Correct.
He had.
What was his final line in game one, Glyn?
Let's see, 6 innings pitched, gave up 3 hits, no earned runs, 5 Ks. I guess that's what's surprising. As good as he was, he only struck out 5 batters. A lot of times in a game like that, that's one of those games where you have double-digit strikeouts.
Right.
So he really got a lot of soft contact from our guys.
And you could tell that the plan against him was hit that fastball. Kyle Morrison led off that game with a double, that he was just sitting fastball. And then Flora threw some fastballs a little bit.
Pitched backwards.
But, man, he just was landing all of that, especially that changeup was filthy.
Well, he had two shapes on his slider, and he had 2 different changeups he was throwing. Yeah. It was nice.
And, of course, that game, was still a game. Santa Barbara jumped out to that 3-0 lead. And then Morrison hit the home run there. I have the box score here, but he hit the home run there in the 8th inning.
The big blow of the game. And,
correct. And then Urban singled, and then Russo hit that just back-breaking double play right there, and it just kind of sucked the life out.
The big blow for them. We were in it, and I guess in Colby said it. He teed up a slider up at the top of the zone, and that guy, like I said earlier, they punished every mistake we made. They're clutch guys. And the guy got that at the top of the zone and drove it out of the park. So,
yeah. And when you look at the hitting for Southern Miss against him, Russo 0 for 3, Gillespie 0 for 4, Stockman 0 for 3, Higdon 0 for 4. So players who were big parts of the lineup for the rest of the series. couldn't hit him, and really it was the transfers.
Yeah, it was
two for 4 for Morrison, 1 for 3 for Urban, Stelly 1 for 4, and Long 1 for 3.
Yeah.
So
well, he was in total command.
yeah. So and then they brought in Raymond Olivas, who he pitched in today's game just a little bit. That's when Southern Miss got that homer. Then they brought in Hoover to get the save there. 2 innings pitched, only 1 hit, 2 strikeouts. Colby Allen, Friday night guy, seemed to me not his best stuff, of course, but
No,
what do you think about Colby Allen on Friday night?
His fastball is where it usually is, that sinker, 90-92. His slider wasn't as sharp as it generally is. And I thought when he was able to go to the changeup, which he probably didn't go to that till almost the 3rd inning, he got some swing and miss out of that. But, I mean, Colby's command wasn't there, like it's going to be.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about Colby.
Yeah, his final line, and he did earn the loss. 5 innings pitched, 8 hits, 3 earned runs, 3 strikeouts, and you said it. I mean, UC Santa Barbara got 1 run in the top of the 1st, and it just kind of looked like little jitters when they loaded the bases there. Got that sac fly, but he got out of it.
Right.
But then that slider, he kind of left over the plate with 2 outs.
He told you that's a pitch he wants a guy to chase.
Correct, and really, I mean, if that doesn't happen, it's a it's
a 1-run game.
Yeah, it's a 1-0 game going into the 8th, and that Morrison homer would have tied it in the 8th inning.
Right.
Which is when Southern Miss did a lot of their damage this weekend, was in the 8th inning. Anything else on Game 1 that you saw? I guess Morrison in the leadoff. He kind of surprised me in that game.
Yeah, and I didn't really see him as a leadoff, although he was doing it in scrimmages. I thought maybe Stelly might do it, maybe Urban might do it, and I'm still not so sure that's the best place for Kyle right now. But it's early, and Oz has shown over the last couple of years that he's willing to fiddle with his lineup, as he goes towards his conference slate. So you could see some change-ups in that lineup.
Sibley comes in after Allen finishes the game, 4 innings pitched, only that 2 home
made
home run.
one mistake.
Right, 7 strikeouts. I mean, I thought that was really encouraging. Obviously, he's a guy who's pitched so much for Southern Miss over the past several years. He comes in and just kind of is what he is. Yeah. He's a guy out of the bullpen. Yeah. And I've tried him as a starter several times, but that to me seems like when he's at the best.
Yeah,
he's the best.
And it's a plus for him, and it makes him who he is when he comes. He's that funky lefty coming off the righty. It's a great look, for that lineup to have to deal with such a change, and the ball's coming out of a completely different slot and it moves different.
For sure. Anything else on Game 1?
No.
Okay, let's move on to Game 2. Of course, a game Southern Miss just had to have to salvage this, to even the series. So Graydon Harris gets the start. Another shaky start. All 3 pitchers for Southern Miss on the starting pitching. And we'll talk about it in a minute, just kind of why we thought that was and what it was. But another shaky start, Glyn. 3 innings pitched, 5 hits, 4 earned runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. And the inning where UC Santa Barbara really did some damage was in that 3rd inning with a 4 spot to take a 4-0 lead. And that's when they pulled Harris out and they put in Camden Sundstrom. I guess, what did you see from Harris? To me, it seemed like he was a little all over the zone, couldn't locate. Yeah. He kept getting into these 3-1, 3 full counts, ran that pitch count up.
Yeah, he needed to probably command his fastball a little better, so he could, pitch off of that. So, he struggled a little bit in that regard. But, again, I'm not concerned with it at this point. He showed last year he could do it, and I've seen him be lights out, a couple of weeks ago in scrimmages. So, sometimes a pitcher is, you either have it or you don't some days, and some days you just have to battle, to land 1 or 2 pitches, But all 3 of our guys kind of struggled a little bit. The command, it was command issues to me.
Yeah, and one thing to me was also like that people need to remember is this isn't your typical opening weekend team.
No,
that's a regional team if I've ever seen one. Probably could threaten to host. And
we've
with those
talked
pitchers
before that Big West Conference has Fullerton, it has Cal Irvine, it has Long Beach State, and several 1st and 2nd round draft picks come out of there every year. So it's extremely talented conference.
Southern Miss goes down 4 twice in the 2nd game, but their lineup starts to gel once they finally got Nathan Acevez kind of hit him around a little bit. He was, 95, 96
he was
on
good.
the mound.
Yeah, he was impressive.
Spotting a couple pitches.
Freshman All-American last year.
Yeah, held Southern Miss down for the most part, but then Southern Miss just kept chipping away, down 6-2. But then one thing, that I thought was impressive, Southern Miss put up 5 scoreless innings with their bullpen with J.W. Armistead, Josh Schock, Camden Clark came in, Camden Sundstrom a couple innings in there as well. And really was able to shut down UC Santa Barbara enough to give Southern Miss the chance with Joey Urban with that go-ahead home run in the 8th inning, which I don't know how it got out of here, but that was a kiss from Corky Palmer or something.
Yeah, from heaven. He blew that thing over there. Yeah, Urban said when he was headed toward first base, the opposing dugout was telling him to run. It wasn't going out, giving him a hard time, and that ball just kept going and going and going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the story of that game in terms of Southern Miss pitching was the middle of that order, and then the finish by Clark.
Yeah.
Sonny came in, held things in check for several innings, and then Ock comes in and puts in one of the best performances he's had since the first of last year.
Yeah, his velo was up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he was, 88, 89 last season? He got up to 93, I think,
actually,
on Saturday.
Yeah, they said his arm got tired last year midseason on, and he lost his velo, and that, his slider off that velo wasn't spinning either. He was 86, 88 toward the end, but yesterday he was 90, 91, 92. And he's added a cutter that's really played well for him. Coach Leger seems to have given everybody here a cutter. When he was leaving the stadium, I grabbed him and asked him if he'd teach me the cutter before the season was over. So yeah, that's important. Oz told Ock at the end of the season, get your arm healthy. Third year is your year. You have to be the man. We need you on the back end. Of course, at the time, he probably didn't know what Clark was going to be either. But then now you got these two right-handed options on the back end. That's huge.
Yes, for sure. Like you said, Ock came in 2 innings pitched, no hits, no runs, 2 strikeouts. He came in a huge moment there in that game too. There was 2 on, I believe, with no outs.
Right.
He comes in, gets a punch out right there, and initiates that ground out with what I thought. Those top 3 hitters in their lineup did a lot of their damage this weekend, and I believe it was against them. So, and then Camden Clark, first time we've seen him in a game, and he looked electric to come out to close the game, and it seems like that's exactly where they're going to put him. We wondered if he was going to be kind of the bridge piece that Ock, I guess, was on Saturday, or whether or not he was just going to be the closer. And it's looking
he thought he could be Colby too, but
yes.
Yeah, like you said,
and I think he's just going to be the closer. Whenever they're up 1 run, he's coming in.
I think the reason for that is now Oz has so many pieces in the middle now that he can throw in there. Last year he had 1 or 2 guys he had to ride the whole season.
Yeah. Ty Long, first career homer as well on Saturday. That was great to see. Stockman and him both really Barrett with 2 hits, Stockman with a hit, and Ty Long with 2 hits in that bottom 7, 8, 9 yesterday on the Saturday game. Just another testament to how deep this lineup is and can be once they're all gelling.
Sure, and he's just started to touch the tip of what he can be as a at the plate. He came in here with a glove, and on his resume, but the hitting's come along faster than I thought it would. He's filled his body out too. He's about 205, 208 pounds, and he's got bat speed and pull power. So
sure. Anything else on game 2?
No, not really. I mean, the big thing was Ock and then Clark. I mean, those guys were bullets, man. And the big thing that makes you feel so good is now you've got your monster closer. You've already found him in Clark, and the guy has ice in his veins. Even after he gives up the home run over here, Coach Oz comes out and talks to him. But I don't think it really made a difference with that kid. He's tough. He wasn't intimidated by it. He just comes right back, strikes the guy out.
Yeah, and obviously
and getting knocked back healthy is huge. They didn't have him last year. It was tough on the back end for them not to have him.
And you got a guy like a Cross, who you don't really necessarily have to go to Ock or Clark on a Friday, right? You can save them for that Saturday, Sunday games.
Yeah, I mean, Cross can come in and give you five innings, no problem. He's got plenty of endurance in that regard. And
then today's game, I mean, really the only way that series could end, right, with a game like that. UC Santa Barbara goes up in the first inning. Another shaky start. McCarty English today. 3 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 2 strikeouts. Shaky start, kind of settled in there, but his pitch count was so high that they had to pull him after the 3rd inning.
Yeah, I mean, first of the season, you don't want your guys out there throwing more than probably 70 pitches max. So, yeah, his pitch count got eaten up pretty quick. But then, like you said, toward the end there, he started finding his command with his fastball and then landing his secondary stuff off of that. So I was pleased to see that. And I think, he can take positives out of that, to get himself ready for his next start. Sure. That's the way I feel about it anyway.
Yeah. They pitched a lot of pitchers today, Glenn. So I guess Crabtree comes in, looked pretty good. He gave up that, I think it was a solo homer or something like that. They all run together sometimes, but he gave up. It says he gave up a run, but I'm forgetting which one it was. But I'm about to pull it up. But what did you see from Crabtree? I mean, I thought he looked pretty good. I thought he was going to be the midweek starter, and he still might on Tuesday.
Right.
But so I was kind of surprised to see him come in today. But his first appearance. What were your thoughts on him?
Yeah, showed velo with that fastball. The fastball.
Yeah, solo homer in the 4th inning by Nick Huzvowski. So
yeah, the
sorry
first
to
big first
interrupt you.
baseman. No, yeah, the fastball in the fall. When I was talking to Oz, it was maybe a little flat, and guys were really seeing it. So they worked on a little deception with him, messed with his arm slot a little more, and you got him to hide the ball a little more. So that 92, 94, is a little more effective. He pitched predominantly, it seemed like, fastball, changeup,
Yep.
and I've always seen him fastball, curveball. So he has 3 pitches he can work with, but that changeup was working for him, and he was, pitching fastball and then the changeup off the fastball. I think it was positive for him. I think, he's a guy that could start some midweeks for us at some point, and he's he's got starter stuff that he can bring out there in the middle of the game. That's nice.
Yeah. Cole Richardson comes in, 1 inning pitch, just 1 hit, and he looked pretty good, in the times that he came in a couple of high leverage situations and was able to, put up a nice 3 outs for Southern Miss. It's all about piecing out those 27 outs. So
yeah,
he got him 3 outs, and holding down this lineup. I mean, that was a really good UC Santa Barbara lineup. The question that we had coming into this series was, we know UC Santa Barbara will hold Southern Miss's lineup down enough to win this series if their bats can wake up.
Sure.
And their bats deliver.
They can hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was impressed with it. They're going to win a lot of games this year. I'm going
Yeah.
to be curious to watch them see how they do. Yeah, Cole got redshirted last year. Some of his issues have been, he's got good stuff, but it's been command.
Yeah.
And I think early on, he that fastball out of that funky arm slot that really, really moves was good for him at 90, 93. And then his changeup, he pitches that changeup off of that, and it's almost 12 to 14 miles an hour difference. It's probably one of the best changeups on the team. It's just, that first inning was really good, and then after that, I think he lost his command again. Mm-hmm. For him, it's just going to be consistency and command. He's got stuff. So
yeah, Willoughby comes in after him, gives up that 2-run homer to Goldstein, who's the freshman, who was just terrific for UC Santa Barbara over the weekend, batted 500.
Yeah, I mean, and I was feeling good about that. That was a left-on-left moment. And,
correct.
And Willoughby is brutal against left-handed bats. And,
and with 1 out, 1 guy on there. The UC Santa Barbara did so well over the weekend to just, even if it was 2 outs, they still made that last out almost so hard.
Oh, yeah, 2-out hitting was huge for those guys. And, Brooks comes up there with that fastball, kind of away, but up in the zone a little more than I'd like it. But the kid was geared up for it and took it out of the park.
104 off the bat. It was
smoked
no doubter.
it. And that kid's a freshman. He's
good. Man, he's really good.
Good ball player.
After Willoughby, it was J.W. Armistead just came in to with 1 batter after a struggle yesterday, walking a couple guys. He walked 1 guy. They pulled him immediately. I don't really want to say much about him, but really the story of the game to me, Glenn, was Dylan Causey comes in, guy on first base, no outs.
Sure.
And he's the first freshman. We've talked about this freshman pitching class like nobody else, and he wasn't the first freshman I would have expected to come out.
Yeah,
I'd drive the bus
top 4 for sure. But.
Yeah, I was driving the bus for Sam Mitchell. We mentioned him on Wednesday as Dylan Causey's a guy you're going to see eventually.
Sure.
Just didn't think in that moment, and I said it after the game today. He said, I've said it all weekend. I don't want to throw these guys out of the fire, but that guy, he lays the bunt down, gets the strike, gets the bunt there, and then gets the two groundouts there that were just ginormous. Or the 2 strikeouts, I believe, right? So it was Esquire who sacrificed punts. Then Noah Carliner comes in with the guy on second. The go-ahead run. Yeah, Carliner 417 over the weekend, and a freshman Dylan Causey comes in, strikes him out in the 8th inning, and then Colin Biezo, who was one of their pitch hitters, struck him out too.
Sure.
That was a huge moment, I thought.
Yeah, they bring that kid in as a lefty to match up against Causey. And Causey is another kid that's benefited from Coach Legier's learning the cutter. He was 90-93 with that fastball, and he was pitching that cutter off that fastball, and it was really effective. It was moving well. He stroked both those guys out with that cutter. Yeah, and he looked confident. You always wait to see if those kids get up there and you can tell if they're nervous or things are getting tight. He was like, when we interviewed him, he didn't seem bothered by it any of it at all.
When they brought him in,
mature kid.
I looked at you and I said, this is a potential,
this could get bad.
Right? And it was something against Dylan Causey.
No.
It's just like putting a freshman in that moment in a series that was this magnitude with a guy on first and no outs. I mean, obviously he wasn't pitching against the top of their lineup, but I mean, like we said, Carliner, he was
done
big
damage, man.
And
Oz had said early on, I'd really rather not throw my freshman to the fire this year, because I don't think I have to. So when he brought him in there, I was a little bit surprised. So.
Yeah, we thought it was either going to be Cross or Camden Clark, the 8th, 9th,
right.
And obviously Clark came into the 9th. Dre Barrett homered there in the 8th inning. We all thought that was probably the winner. Backside home run, 369 feet. Camden Clark comes in, gets a line out there. Nice play by Kyle Morrison at second base. I thought Kyle Morrison really, we talked.
Acquitted himself well.
We were concerned about, the middle infield. I thought there wasn't any problems really. Outside of, like I said, Ty Long, of course, dropped that pop fly, but,
99 times out of 100, like you said, he's going to catch that, yeah.
And, of course, really, when he did that, Glenn, I thought that they were going to lose. The baseball gods just
punish you for that stuff, yeah.
And of course, Kosciuszko, once again for them, was just huge all weekend for them. Tripled to center field. That ball was probably 8 feet from going out.
Yeah, it was.
He
so they put Urban on the wall. So,
but big punch out there to Huzbowski for Camden Clark.
Yeah.
Oz went out there and talked to him, and he got that punch out with a guy on third, 2 outs.
Yeah, ice in his veins, man. A lot of guys, considering that's his second time to on a D1 mound, could have fallen apart, and it didn't phase him. So, definitely has the makeup to be a closer. So,
Stockman singles, infield single there in the ninth. Ty Long walk. They sacrifice bunt Morrison to bunt him over,
and
then
huge.
they
getting that bunt down was big.
Yeah, potentially intentionally walk Urban, and Russo walks off the series with the RBI walk, and he said, quote, "It's the easiest walk-off I've ever hit here," because he didn't have to hit it.
Yeah,
so, okay, so that's kind of the review on each game. Glenn, I wanted to ask you just overall thoughts on the starting pitching. To me, is a little concerning, but part of it's like this is a good lineup. I want to see them again this weekend when they play really 3 more good ball clubs this weekend at Round Rock, but I guess, did it concern you a little bit, the starting rotation?
I'm not concerned, just more disappointed than concerned. Oz has had issues before, and when I'm looking at him, we're having that conversation, and he agreed to some extent, but I also know that he'll sit all those guys down, they're going to have a conversation. I think the biggest thing was command with those guys. But think about this, we just took a top 30 team out here with all 3 of our starters not having anywhere near their best nights, back to back to back.
Very good point.
It's got to speak to you. And we didn't really hit the ball that well either.
So it was 11, how many runs did they have in the first game? 5. So 16 runs over the weekend for UC Santa Barbara, and the starting pitchers allowed 8 of them. Yeah. So, like you said, if the starting pitching was on, Southern Miss might have swept.
Right. The middle and the back end looked strong for Southern Miss already.
Right. Which was something that was the talk of this team was this team's 5 to 12 pitchers is so much better than last season.
And they're still good arms you hadn't even seen yet. So
for sure. Okay, so the lineup, Glenn. We talked up this lineup as being really deep. I didn't think they hit very well this week. And, of course, really good arms. All 3 of their starters were really good. Little struggle. Morrison had a really good opening night, but I don't think he had a hit after Friday night. Right. He was 0 for 4 today, and I think he was 0 for 5 yesterday. So he batted 154 leading off. Urban was really their guy, 455. Dre Barrett, 417 on the weekend. Russo 250, but he led the team in RBIs. Gillespie just struggled all weekend. Big double for them in this game tonight, but
found a fastball up in the zone, put it on the wall.
And Long, I think, was fine. In your 9-hole, Higdon struggled. He batted 100 over the weekend. I know it was a good starting rotation for them, but it is a little. You want to see more from this lineup.
Yeah, number one for starters, that very well could be the best group of weekend stars we faced the entire season. So they create a lot of problems of their own for your hitters, but I think also maybe our hitters maybe weren't seeing the ball as well as they could. And early in the season, it happens to you. They, expanding the zone a little bit, chasing a little bit, which, makes the pitcher better than he actually is. And I was talking to Russo about that, and he agreed with me to some extent there. But then he also said, yeah, but those were some really good pitchers. You couldn't really lock in on anything on most of those guys. So, and also, dude, for 5 years, we've started out hitting cold as ice for the first 6 weeks of the season and then catch fire. That's just who we are, man.
Yeah.
I'm not sweating it. People be crying for, but we just can't hit. We're not going to hit. And then these guys catch fire and just go crazy the last half of the season. So it's pretty typical Southern Miss start. And then it's starting against a tremendous pitching staff they face today. So I'm not at all concerned about it.
Yeah, and like you said, they won the series. And, Friday night when they lost game 1, I think everybody thought that it was a potential to be maybe disaster this weekend.
It could get a swept.
And so for them to bounce back in both games, I mean, today and yesterday, they were behind, and they found a way to battle back. Today, of course, they didn't go down 4 runs like they did in game 2, but they were still behind at 2 points in the game, down 2-1 and 1-0, and found a way to get some, runs back. And each time they throw a punch, UC Santa Barbara right back. They went up.
That's what you like to see.
They went up 4-2, and like we said, Goldstein with that huge home run there to tie it at 4.
Yeah, because you're thinking the game's probably done there. If we get to Clark, it's done.
Yes, and then Dre with the backside homer, you thought it was definitely done, and then Long just drops that pop fly. But I guess, Glyn, I mean, really, this was. I think we can cherry pick and a little here, a little there, but overall, very encouraged with what you saw this weekend for this Southern Miss team, who we've talked about to be one of the best teams Australians had.
Right.
I think the pieces are there for that to be the case.
Sure. And like we said, this was a legit top 30 team, said so by D1 baseball. And, and a tremendous arms. And we win the series against a top 30 team when we did not play our best baseball.
Yeah.
So that's very encouraging.
For sure. It is southeastern Louisiana, I think, on Tuesday, on the road in Hammond, which is never an easy place to play.
No, it's not.
They generally, give Southern Miss a game. I'm about to look up their record, but
they always seem to have arms too, man.
Yeah.
And they will small ball you to death.
Yes. I guess who would you expect Glyn to go on the mound on Tuesday night?
Dude, I'm probably, since he's a freshman, it's probably a way out there, but something in my gut tells me we're going to see Sam Mitchell. And that could be way off. Maybe Oz didn't put him out there today because he's thinking about giving him a shot, on Tuesday night.
Kent State swept southeastern Louisiana over the weekend. So Southeastern looking for
Was it there or away?
It was in Hammond.
Okay.
Kent State, of course, really good baseball program, but Southeastern will always give Southern Miss a game. That's never going to be easy,
always get up for Southern
especially
Miss.
Coming after an emotional series win like this.
Sure,
you want to be ready to play, and Southern Miss has a big weekend ahead of them out there at Round Rock. Glyn, I guess just final thoughts on this series, how would you grade the overall pitching and hitting? I guess let's do that. Let's grade the overall pitching and hitting, and then just your final thoughts on the series.
Starting pitching, Southern Miss, C. Closers, A. Middle of the way, B, B+.
Yep.
Hitting, C. I think they expanded the zone. Some of the guys expanded the zone. Some guys had trouble gearing up for fastballs. Didn't see it. Didn't get their swings off. If you're sitting in that 3, 4, 5 hole and you're a big physical cat, you're supposed to punish fastballs. And there were a couple of guys who didn't do that this weekend.
How concerned are you with Gillespie?
I'm worried about his ability to hit fastballs that are not even plus, but 93 or above, being able to gear up for those fastballs. It's still kind of, to me, looks like a long swing for him.
Yeah.
And then maybe this week, and some of that was last year too, he starts gearing up for the fastball, cheating on the fastball.
Yeah.
And then the breaking ball eats your lunch because you're geared up for that fastball. So, yeah, it can turn into a mess, but it was so good today to see him take that fastball at the top of the zone and drive it.
And he took a few walks,
Just make sure they close the windows in there.
Yeah.
That was John.
That was John Cox.
But yeah, so I don't know what we were talking about. Oh, Gillespie.
Yeah.
I agree. It was concerning. As somebody who was driving the bus for him.
Yeah. Well,
I was 6 strikeouts or whatever it was over the first 2 games. You were kind of like sitting there, doing this with your head. But then I thought today he took his walks, and then waited for that pitch. He got a big double for them right there, and I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah.
He's just got to figure out to wait on that fastball. He's late. When they were throwing velo at him, and me and you would look at each other and be like, if they throw 97, he's probably striking out.
Yeah, he was.
And they need
way
Higdon
late.
and Gillespie to be great for them this season, for that lineup to be what they want it to be.
Yeah, and
Higdon wasn't great this week.
I don't think for Gillespie it's a matter of bat speed or lack thereof. I think there are adjustments that could be made for him so he can get his swing off a little quicker. His swing looks a little long.
Yeah.
And it's recognition too, timing and recognition. So I'm not too worried about Gillespie. Just things for him to work on and make adjustments.
For sure. So it's on to southeastern Louisiana for Southern Miss this weekend. And if I forgot, I need to grade pitching and all that stuff. So starting pitching, I'm with you. I'd say like B-, C+. I know they were all on pitch counts, but you need more than 3
I know
innings.
they're all going to be better, so
Yes.
and that's a plus. We
Right.
win games with them struggling, so
sure.
they're going to be better. I'm not worried about
I would say middle pitching was really good. So I'd give that probably B plus, A minus, and then closing pitching, I'll give that an A plus. Really saved them those games yesterday and today.
Yeah, to already have 2 options as closers this early, and there's still guys that are going to get discovered.
Yeah.
That's promising.
No doubt. Batting, I'd give that like a C minus, C plus ish, but I know that was a really good rotation. I just would have liked to have seen a little bit more fight in some of those at bats from several different players. But like we said, this is we can cherry pick and pick some things here, pick some things there. That's still a really good series win. When, like Glenn said, Southern Miss did not play their best baseball, and they come away with a series win that could be really big for them down the road in hosting discussions, because UC Santa Barbara, they're going to win some games, and to win a game here for them, and that RPI for them is going to be high, and Southern Miss is going to have a nice home series win against Santa Barbara. It's on to Southeastern Louisiana on Tuesday, but then before Round Rock, we'll be back with you. Probably Wednesday, Thursday, somewhere in there. We'll do a preview of Round Rock, recap of Southeastern Louisiana. Probably quick thoughts on that. But Purdue 2-1 are the Boilermakers as of today. That they see Purdue on Friday afternoon. They'll play Oregon State on Saturday evening, and Oregon State currently is 2-1 as well. And then they'll see Baylor on Sunday on an afternoon game, which a kid from Baylor had freaking 3 grand slams the other day. So they have some good competition coming up as well for Southern Miss baseball, and they wouldn't want it any other way, right?
Exactly.
It should be interesting. Baylor 3-0 right now after a sweep of New Mexico State. So 3 good matchups again for Southern Miss. I think it's cool that they get 3 different teams instead of playing a series. You can kind of see different arms, see different lineups, things like that.
More for us to figure out and break down, though.
But no doubt, really big series win for Southern Miss. 5-1 on Friday, 8-6 on Saturday, and 6-5 today for the Golden Eagles. 2-1 to start the early season. Glenn, anything else before we pack our bags and get out of here?
No, just typical Southern Miss baseball. Southern Miss.
Are you glad it's back?
Oh yeah, most definitely. But Southern Miss, it was fun to watch. There were good baseball players out there. There were great pitching, some great.
It really felt like a regional.
It was good. It was good baseball played out there. Not a lot of errors if you think about it.
Yeah.
It was pretty clean for first game of the season, first series of the season.
Yeah.
But typical Southern Miss. They're at their best from the 7th inning on. So it's almost like they're just kind of chilling until they get down to crunch time.
Yeah.
Pete Taylor Park magic is a real thing, man.
Pete Taylor Park magic. All right. Well, that is Glyn Dyar for 247 Sports. You can follow all of his coverage on goldeneaglepride.com. Glenn, what do they need to do to find you? Click
type in one word, goldeneaglepride.com, and they'll take you to our page. Come see us.
Yep, and you can follow me at Pine Belt News, Pine Belt Sports, all that stuff. Go to the website, HubCitySpokes.com/sports. But also, if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel, View from the Press Box. We really enjoy it doing this stuff, and we'll be back probably Wednesday or Thursday to preview the Round Rock tournament, and we'll kind of recap Southeastern Louisiana.
Yes, should be more premium arms.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't think it'll be as good as those guys, but we'll see what happens over the weekend. So for Glyn Dyar for 247 Sports, I'm Dima Mixon, and that was a View from the Press Box as Southern Miss finishes off UC Santa Barbara with a 2-1 series win. We'll see you next time.
With a guest appearance from John Cox.